All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about how one single document, written way back in the 18th century, didn't just create a new country. No, it gave the entire world a kind of blueprint, a new way of thinking that would completely change how nations are run.
It sounds kind of weird when you put it like that, right? But that was the radical, absolutely world-changing idea at the heart of the American experiment. You have to remember, before this, power pretty much always belonged to a person, a king, a queen, an emperor. But this idea didn't just pop out of nowhere. It was really the ultimate expression of the Enlightenment, this huge intellectual movement that put reason and individual rights ahead of the divine right of kings. So the US Constitution basically said, hey, from now on, the ultimate authority isn't a person. It's a document that everyone, and we mean everyone, has to obey.
And this is where you can really see just how massive that shift was. On the one side, you've got the old way of doing things. A monarch's power is absolute, it's inherited, and you just don't question it. But on the other side, you've got this new American idea. Power is limited. It comes from the people, and all the rules are written down in a document for absolutely everyone to see. This wasn't just a new set of laws. It was a completely different philosophy of what government even is. A total game changer.
So, what was actually in this revolutionary blueprint? What made it so special? Well, you can almost think of it like the first open source code for building a nation, a code that other people could look at, study, and even adapt for themselves.
And at the very heart of it all is the idea of a written constitution itself. I mean, the truly revolutionary part was just writing it all down. By putting everything into a single, formal document that acted as the supreme law, it made the rules of the game stable and transparent. It meant your rights couldn't just vanish overnight because a new ruler felt like changing things.
And here are the key ingredients of that source code. First, you've got the separation of powers. Super clever. It splits the government into three branches, the legislative, executive, and judicial, so no single group gets all the power. Then, to make sure of that, you have checks and balances, this brilliant system where each branch can kind of keep the others in line. And then the big one, popular sovereignty. The incredible idea that all power, all of it, ultimately comes from we the people. And finally, you have a Bill of Rights, which basically puts up a big do not cross line around the fundamental freedoms of every citizen. These were the ideas that were about to go viral 18th century style.
And boy, did they spread. And fast. The success of this American experiment wasn't some quiet little thing. It sent massive shockwaves across the ocean, kicking off this huge global conversation about what it means to be free and to govern yourself. Just look at this timeline. It shows you how quickly it all happened. The ink is barely dry on the US Constitution in 1787. And just 4 years later, boom, Poland adopts its own. 2 years after that, you've got revolutionary France getting in on the act. And then, as nations all across Latin America win their independence, where do they look for a model? That's right, to the United States. This ripple effect was real, and it was happening fast. And this quote from Thomas Paine, it just perfectly captures the feeling of that moment. People really believed that the ideas being tested in America, liberty, self-rule, basic human rights, they weren't just for Americans. No, they were universal. They were for everyone. Now, this influence didn't just fizzle out. As we roll into the 20th and 21st centuries, the US blueprint is still a huge source of inspiration. But, and this is really important, something changes. Countries don't just copy it anymore. They start to adapt it, to remix it, to fit their own unique histories and cultures. So yeah, this is the crucial point right here. It was never a simple copy and paste job. Nations around the world took those core principles, like separating powers or protecting rights, and they tailored them to solve their own problems and reflect their own values. This table gives us some perfect examples of what I mean. Take Germany after World War II. They looked at the First Amendment's protection of free speech, but because of their own terrible history, they made a critical change. They also explicitly outlawed hate speech. Or look at Japan, which, with US influence, adopted the whole idea of judicial review, letting a Supreme Court decide if laws are constitutional. And all over the world, countries have used the presidential system, but they've tweaked the rules on things like term limits to fit their own needs. So that brings us right up to today, to its legacy. That simple idea from 1787 that a nation should be run by a clear, written set of rules, well, it's pretty much become the global standard for what it means to be a modern country. Just let that number sink in for a second. 82%. Over 4/5 of all the countries in the world now operate under a written constitution. I mean, that is just an incredible testament to the power of this one idea. The concept of a government of laws, not of individuals, has, for the most part, won. And so all of this leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. In a world that's facing challenges the founders could have never, ever dreamed of,
We're talking everything from AI to climate change. Is this blueprint from over 230 years ago still the best way to do things? Or is it maybe time for the next great innovation in how we govern ourselves? Definitely something to think about.